Once again, thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can walk us through a short presentation about community engaged courses and specifically the designation that we have now here at the university for community engaged courses. Can everybody see my screen? Great. So today I wanted to just briefly walk through the community engaged course designation, the designation purpose, the criteria for the designation, which I think this is where we'll spend our most time today, and it's probably where most people have their questions. We'll talk a little bit about the application process for the CEC designation, as well as sort of what the review process looks like. And then there will be plenty of time for questions. And I'd be happy to really answer any questions related to community engaged courses at Iowa, not just the designation itself. So this community engaged course designation is actually a long time coming for us here at the University of Iowa. I've worked for the university for about 10 years, and I've mentioned to several people that the first couple of weeks that I was on the job, I was in meetings about potentially creating some kind of designation around community engagement for courses. So we've been working on this for a while. I will give a shout out specifically to the RISE program that came out of the old strategic plan, or not old, but the last strategic planning process at the university that really looked at sort of what we need to try and enhance community engagement within courses at Iowa. And one of the things that came out of that process was the RISE program, Research, Internship, Service Learning, and Civic Engagement, that's being led out of the Public Policy Center. And one of the initiatives out of that was to think about creating a community engaged course designation. And so we've had the privilege in my office, in the Office of Community Engagement, of working through that process over the last year and a half with the committee to create sort of what the designation would look like, the criteria for the designation, the process. And so this year is the first year that we're officially launching that designation. You know, there's many reasons why we decided to move forward with this designation. I would say probably the biggest one is that this is really the first time when students will have the opportunity to proactively enroll in a course that is community engaged. So in the past, obviously courses, sometimes students knew that there might be a community engagement component to it just from word of mouth or from knowing the instructor or faculty member. But there's no way when they were registering for courses on MyU Iowa to actually see that. Through this designation, we've worked with the registrar's office so that the designation does now show up on MyU Iowa when students are registering. And I'll show everybody a screenshot of what that looks like in a second. The second reason is that our hope is this helps to continue to elevate these community engaged courses on campus. There's many benefits to teaching community engagement. We know that it advances student understanding of course material. We know that it helps them to better connect with their profession. We know it better connects them to their major. We know that it even begins to impact student retention and graduation rates. So there's a lot of good benefits to this. Another reason for this is that we want to be able to offer resources and support to instructors that are teaching community engagement. And, you know, our office, one of our missions is to try to support instructors and faculty that are teaching community engagement with resources. But it's hard to know who's teaching it unless if we sort of have a way of sort of getting that information. So that's another reason for this. And then the final thing is that this does help us to collect data and think about how can we further best practices for community engaged teaching and learning. And one of the things that we are hoping is that instructors that are applying for the designation and getting their courses designated will let us know how things are going, let us know sort of what they're learning through the process, not just about the designation itself, but just about teaching community engagement at the University of Iowa. So there's many reasons that we think that this is a valuable designation, and we're hopeful that that there's benefit for a variety of folks here at the university. So the big question is what is the designation? How does a course meet the community engagement criteria. So after a year of sort of looking through what counts or what would count towards a community engaged course, we sort of have 5 basic criteria. And I'm going to walk through each of these points. I will point you to our website, which also has this criteria sort of defined out. And the link that I have here on the screen will take you directly to that on our website. But there's basically 5 key points that we're looking for in a community engaged course. The first one seems maybe obvious, but this was actually a discussion point that came up within the committee, which is community engagement just experiential learning, or does there have to be an actual external partner to a community, to a course? And what we determined is that for the community engaged course designation, at least, we do require that there's an external partner to the university. This could be really any partner. It could be a local government, it could be a nonprofit, it could be a for-profit, it could be a community organization, but it needs to be some kind of entity that's external to the university. And this is because there are unique benefits to students working with organizations that are outside of the University of Iowa. The second sort of key point or key criteria for the CEC designation is that the course that is seeking this designation must include activities that demonstrate that community engagement is incorporated into the course syllabus and the course activities. So activities could be assignments. So we look for our assignments, asking students to, write reports. Are they having discussion groups? Are they having readings about their partner, their community engaged work that they're doing? Are there actual visits to the community partner? Are they giving presentations to their community partner? Are the students, meeting weekly with their community partner? Are they meeting bi-weekly with their community partner? Are they communicating on a regular basis with their community partner? We look for, a variety of activities which demonstrate that community engagement is embedded in the course in a way in which it is furthering the course objectives and course goals. And it's also reflecting sort of a community engaged experience for the students as part of the course requirements. The third bullet point here is really sort of the hallmark of community engagement. And this is probably where we really see sort of the crux of our applications that come in for CECs. And that is the idea of demonstrating that these course partnerships with the external partner are based in mutual benefit and reciprocity. And so there's sort of 2 ways to think about this. Reciprocity is the process that a course uses throughout the partnership to ensure that you lead to the outcome, which is mutual benefit. So reciprocity can be demonstrated in a course by showing that the instructor and or the students, and sometimes, logistically, sometimes it's difficult for students to be involved with this right away. Oftentimes an instructor might be involved in this process even before the course begins, where they're working with the community partner in a collaborative manner to identify shared goals and objectives that then helps to sort of create and shape what the partnership is going to look like throughout the course. So that includes everything from creating, a description of what kind of work is going to go on between the students and the community partner, identifying what are the goals for that work. Are there specific values or attributes to the partnership that you're hoping to abide by throughout the partnership? Regardless of sort of all of the specific details, the basic premise of the reciprocity piece is that everybody is on equal footing in terms of being able to contribute to that process. And so there's not an imbalance between the university side deciding this is what we want to do, or the community partner deciding this is what we want to do, but it's really a very collaborative process. Oftentimes what we recommend with reciprocity, though, is that we start with what are sort of community needs and see how we can match community needs with the course objectives. So that mutual benefit piece then is looking at how does this partnership within this course result in mutual benefit between the faculty or the instructor and the students and the community partner. So how is the reciprocity, how is the partnership itself, how is that process leading to mutual benefit? So that could be everything from the specific substance of the work that's happening is going to contribute to the partner. It can also be, engagement that's happening within the community as a result of the partnership. It can be the new ideas. It can be the sort of innovation that can happen as a result of these partnerships. It can even be sort of the opening up of resources that happens between campus and community. But mutual benefit is also a two-way street. So it means that we're learning from the community partner and the community partner is learning from us. And even the sort of us versus them language is oftentimes something we try to steer clear from, thinking about this being really a partnership where we're all in this together. So that's really a key piece to the course designation. And it's the area where I think we probably look the closest to make sure that these pieces are being met within the designation or within the course. The fourth criteria is related to the syllabus and grading. And here, basically what we're looking for is to see that community engagement is a substantial enough component of the course that it's making an impact. And there's no bright line here. And generally speaking, courses that are submitting or instructors that are submitting courses for this application fairly easily meet this criteria because in order to meet the rest of the criteria in terms of activities and mutual benefit and reciprocity, the community engagement has to be a substantial enough part of the course. The big thing here is we're just looking for the syllabus. So every application will include answering the questions, which we'll talk about in a second, but then also submitting the syllabus. And so we just look at the syllabus to make sure that community engagement is actually reflected throughout the course. The fifth and final criteria for the designation is to show that there's reflective opportunities for students within the course. So reflection is another key component of community engaged learning. And really here, what we're hoping for is to see that students through formal assignments that they do. Now, these assignments can look in a lot of different ways. They could be written assignments, they could be video blogs, they could be group discussions, they could be there's some really interesting things happening right now in terms of like sort of spur of the moment reflection that happens when students are out working with their community partner. There's a lot of really interesting things happening with that. So it can look in a lot of different ways, but the hope here is that the reflective assignments are allowing students to think critically about how the community engaged work is connected to their course and also to our community and our society and the issues that the course is trying to address. Oftentimes, these reflective pieces might actually specifically relate to another assignment in the course. So they might ask a student to, reflect on previous assignments that they did in the class. Maybe there are even assignments that weren't specifically related to the community engagement component, but it asks the student to sort of bring in that knowledge that they learned to try to reflect on how is that related to their community engagement project. So these are the 5 criteria that we look at. And I would say that, with all of these, it's sort of looking at the totality and ensuring that the course is really sort of reflecting this, both in terms of substance, but also just in terms of the overall commitment to these criteria within the course. So with that, the application process itself is fairly easy. There is an online application through our website, and I have a link here. And let's see if I can pull it up and if this will show up. Is everybody seeing the website on my screen? Are you still seeing the PowerPoint? You're still seeing the PowerPoint. Let me stop and reshare. Okay, is everybody seeing the Office of Community Engagement website now? Okay, great. So this, just as an FYI, this also is where we have information about the specific criteria that we just walked through. But here's the application link. And so it's a very easy Microsoft fill form that basically asks you just to respond to the 5 criteria that we listed. Everything is specifically in the application itself, so you can just go through. It shouldn't take you more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes, depending on sort of, you know, if you have your information sort of ready and available. So then you'll submit that to us, and that will go directly to our office. And that, along with your syllabus, will be your application for fall 2022. Now I'm going to stop sharing that and go back to our one thing to keep in mind too with this is that for some instructors that have already received the course designation for this spring semester, so we have 20 some courses that are already designated for this spring semester as a community engaged course. Those instructors, if they're teaching the same class, so sometimes we teach the same class every semester, they have a different application that's much shorter, and it simply asks that if you are teaching the same course and you're planning on continuing to do your community engaged project as a result in that course, that you just tell us that. Let us know if there's any modifications or if there's changes to what you're planning. But if not, then we'll just, you won't have to answer the rest of the questions like a initial application. And then you'll just automatically receive the designation then. So that is one thing to keep in mind with this, is that the designation occurs every semester, but it gets easier each time if your course has already been designated. So in terms of the timeline of this, I know it's strange to be thinking about fall courses already, but a lot of this is based on when courses begin to go live on MyU Iowa, which, believe it or not, for fall courses, they are actually released on MyU Iowa in February this year for students to begin to look at. So there's sort of 2 deadlines for instructors. The first deadline is if you want to make sure that your course is designated for students to see the first day that courses go live on MyU Iowa. And if that is the case, then the application deadline is January 17th. Now, if that seems awfully early and you're still in the process of determining whether you're even going to have a community engaged course or not, the final deadline for submitting an application is April 8th. And what this means is that between that initial February deadline and the April deadline, students will be able to go into MyU Iowa and begin to use the course scheduler to determine what courses they're going to take. And basically on a rolling basis, course applications that come in will review on an individual basis and then add them to the existing course designation list on MyU Iowa. So, every course that gets an application in by April 8th will be included on the designation list. The only difference is that some students may have already filled up their schedule, and so they won't have seen that your course was a community engaged course by that point. So in terms of the review process itself, it's fairly simple. Initially, the application just comes to the Office of Community Engagement and undergoes an initial staff review. And if the criteria is clearly met, then we'll write you an email and say, congratulations, your course is met the Community Engaged course designation. If there's questions about the course or if there's further evaluation that's needed, we have a committee that sort of looks at applications and makes some recommendations. It's made up of faculty, but also professionals on campus, like from our Center for Teaching, who are experts in teaching community engaged learning and teaching courses in general. And the whole purpose of this is not to deny courses the designation, but to then go back to the instructor and say, here's some recommendations on how we might be able to improve this to make sure that the course is reflecting the community engaged criteria that we have set forth. The process that takes is fairly quick. We will come back to instructors that have submitted by the January 17th deadline within a few days, and give them a week or so to make some modifications or adjustments if they're trying to meet that initial MyU Iowa deadline of February. So if you're wanting your course to be available the first day that courses go live on MyU Iowa on February 1st, then the deadline to get that designation finalized is January 28th. Otherwise, it will be on a rolling basis throughout February, March, and early April in terms of the committee coming back to any applications that might need some potential revisions to the criteria. This is a screenshot here. As you'll see, this is where on MyU Iowa, under Schedule Builder and under course listings, this Community Engaged course link is here. And if you click on that in MyU Iowa, it basically brings you to a drop-down of all the courses that have been designated as Community Engaged. And so that will continue to populate as we receive applications throughout the spring semester. So finally, before I turn it over to the group for any questions they might have, I would encourage everybody to visit our website, the Office of Community Engagement website. We have more information about community engaged courses at engagement.uiowa.edu/community engaged courses. And so there's more information here for instructors as well as for students that might be interested in these courses. And that's also where you'll find the links to the registration as well as this informational workshop once we're done. So with that, I will open it up for any questions that folks may have today. And I will stop sharing screen so that I can see you all.
So why would a student want to do that? What is the benefit for them for taking a CEC course?
Great question. So, students really value community engaged courses because they value the opportunity to connect with professionals in their field of study, which community engagement allows them to do. It allows them to sort of get out of the classroom and into the world where they get to apply what they're learning. Many students have reported, and one of the things I'll say is we do have some good data on this. So we have good data on this nationally, but then we actually have good data on it at the University of Iowa specifically. So based on survey work that we've done for students that have taken community engaged courses, over 90% of students who've taken a community engaged course report that they want to take another one. Over 94% of students said that community engaged courses give them the opportunity to better understand the course content. In the upper 80s to low 90s percentage of students who've taken community engaged courses say that it helped them better understand how their studies are connected to their profession or their field of, what they're hoping to do once they graduate. So there's a lot of opportunities for students here to leverage these courses to not only better understand what they're doing in class and perform better in terms of their course objectives, but then also connect to the world that they're hoping to work in. whether it's their specific profession or maybe if it's even just their community in general. You know, there are other institutions for sure that have created these community engaged course designations, and actually what we've seen, or what they've seen, is that there's actually an increase in the number of students registering for community engaged courses once they're designated. So we're at the very beginning of this. We're just kicking this off, so we don't have numbers about that yet. But based on the student response that we've seen, there certainly is strong interest in students for taking these kind of courses. And that is certainly something that's reflected in national data. The national data is overwhelming in regards to this. So,
thank you. Earlier, before the pandemic, I had heard some talk about making this mandatory for all students, but they were going to move very slowly. And I guess I'm wondering, is that still in the works? Is this going to be more optional? Where are we at with all that?
yeah, so, you know, right now, at a university level, we're not very far along in terms of conversations about mandating community engaged courses for all students, but there are certainly conversations happening at the college level in some of the individual colleges. Now, some colleges, like College of Business, actually already has the RISE requirement, which is what I spoke at the beginning of this informational session about the RISE program that came out of the previous strategic planning process for the Public Policy Center. That was based off of the College of Businesses, or at least somewhat based off of the College of Business RISE program, which already requires their students to have some kind of experiential education opportunity. Now, it's not only community engagement, it might also be a study abroad or an internship or something like that. But the College of Business already led the way in terms of requiring their students to have some kind of experiential education. And I know that the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences are exploring that right now. A couple of other colleges are sort of there in various ways. But at this point, one of the things that we're hoping with this designation is that it continues to elevate you know, the profile of community engaged courses at the university, and also shows the demand that students are really interested in this kind of learning. So, Megan, I see your hand up.
Hi. So I was kind of similarly thinking about the why question, Pam, but I teach classes that are required. So every once in a while we have someone who might be looking for the class and take it from another, who's in another college, but for the most part, they're required classes that students maybe have a little bit of choice, but probably don't have a lot of choice about whether they're taking my class. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding that if I did do this, it would kind of flag the course on your end, and that it might matter kind of more for administration than for students per se. Can you say a little bit more about what that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Megan. So every course that's designated will show up on the community engaged course listing on MyU Iowa. For your course, it sounds like every student is going to be registering for that regardless. And so for them, they're probably not necessarily thinking, oh, I'm trying to find community engaged courses within the School of Social Work, and so I'm going to click on this, and oh, great, you know, Megan's offering this course, I guess I'll sign up for it. They might say, oh, I'm in the School of Social Work, I'd like to do community engagement, let me take a look at what courses, and they might say, oh, you know what, I'm already going to be taking this course anyways, and it turns out it's community engaged, so that's great. We do have several courses that are designated for the spring semester as community engaged that are required courses within you know, whatever discipline it's in, because oftentimes you know, community engagement might show up towards the end of the student's educational experience when they're doing, you know, field work or practicum experiences, things like that. So there certainly will be some courses where the designation is maybe a little bit less about, you know, students trying to find your course to register for it, and a little bit more just to showcase that it's a community engaged course. Also allow us, you know, the opportunity to get feedback from you about how it's going, or what, you know, if there's support that you know, what kinds of support you might need. But then also the, you know, from our end, the bigger picture then is thinking about these as building blocks towards a better story around how community engagement is making an impact on campus with students, with instructors, with community partners in general. So there's a little bit of, how do I say this? You know, it's like, you know, you're doing, it's like the greater good, maybe. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, though, that it does give students a little more information about the course, even if it is a required course that they're taking.
And the other thing I will say is that, you know, we have had students ask very valid questions about, well, what does it really mean if I'm going to be doing community engagement, you know, or like, what does that really look like? And this designation at least gives us a basic standard. If the course is designated as the CEC, we know that there's mutual benefit and reciprocity. We know that there are going to be activities that are reflecting this kind of work. We know that students are going to be able to have the opportunity to reflect on this and make connections to both their course, but also the world around them. And that helps us then to also, anytime students ask, it gives us a baseline to say, well, these are the kind of experiences you can have with a community engaged course.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, Pam.
I'm sorry.
No, don't. Thank you.
Well, I've been thinking about this for quite a while. So the course that I have in mind that I teach is one of two options that people that are getting the disability studies certificate can take.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, do we have any idea if we got the CEC designation, how many more students would enroll? Because I don't want it to get to the point that those that need it for, excuse me, the disability aren't going to be able to get in. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. That's a good question. So, you know, like I said, we actually are just right now seeing what this designation might mean in terms of enrollments, because we've got this first sort of pilot batch of 27 courses that are already designated for the spring semester, and we're sort of looking at what enrollments mean. I will tell you that one of our goals was, yeah, that's a great recommendation, Jen, is, yeah, you could hold spots in the course. I will tell you that, you know, we do try to promote the courses that are community engaged, and we've been doing that for the courses that are designated for the spring semester. And as a result, a few of the courses have filled up. I mean, actually, some of them I think have filled up for sure. But, you know, we would also be happy to work with you, Pam, if there were specific things that you were thinking about where, you know, because of the particular requirements within for some of the students that are taking your course, you'd want to make sure that, you know, however many spots were free or whatever. And we wouldn't necessarily have to promote your course if you wouldn't want it to be promoted. So okay. It's generally the opposite. Generally, faculty are thinking, oh, this is another way for me to get my course out there so that students see what they're going to be able to do. So
yeah. The other question I have is with regards to the mutual benefit and reciprocity. When I place students, I don't have one spot that they go. It's very individualized. So some are working with child serve if they want to go into speech language, OTPT, that kind of thing. Some are working with the UI Reach program. Some are working with a community-based group. Some are working, you know, with Special Olympics. If someone is not getting the disability studies certificate, we could certainly have them working with other organizations as well. So does that complicate things if, you know, I've got multiple groups we're working with?
No, not at all. And that at least in terms of our end, in terms of whether or not that could be a community engaged process. I think the thing to keep in mind with the mutual benefit and reciprocity is maybe more from your end, thinking about if and it sounds like you've got a good system set up, but thinking about all those different partners, how are you ensuring that your students are getting mutual benefit out of it? How are you ensuring the partners are getting mutual benefit? How are you ensuring that the process is one in which, the students are sort of learning the process of identifying goals and objectives and how you reach those goals and objectives and sort of the equitable process of developing partnerships. That's the only question, but that's really, it sounds like you've got a good, a good system set up. And so from our end, like for example, I taught a community engaged course granted it wasn't designated, but I would hope it would be designated if the designation had been available. I taught a course this semester where we had 5 community partners. And so I tried to replicate the reciprocity and mutual benefit part for each of those 5 partners. So. It's challenging though. I mean, one of the things is like when you have multiple partners for a course, it can be challenging. And that's something that it depends on the circumstance, right? So sometimes, you have long-standing relationships, that certainly makes it easier. You sort of have your system set up, that makes it easier as well. It just depends. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have some follow-up questions that touch on a number of questions that have been asked already.
Yes.
Is there a community engaged course designation on the transcript when they take the course?
That's a good question. Right now, there is not.
Okay.
So that is something that we're definitely working towards.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I just wanted to understand the reapplication process. So, so if I teach this class every semester, I reapply each semester because it's not necessarily guaranteed that I'm offering this, with my community partners in the future. Is that the understanding?
Exactly. Yeah. So every semester you'd submit another application, but I should have pulled it up for you guys. It's on our website, I believe, and if it's not, we'll make sure that it's up there today. But it's a very short application that basically just asks you to tell us, I'm teaching the same course again, and it's going to be community engagement again. And so then you'll immediately get the designation. The only thing that changes is if you tell us, I'm teaching the course again, but I've changed everything, and I'm doing a totally different system. And so then the question would be, okay, well, is it more outreach related now, or is it more a volunteer service learning kind of component, or is it still a community engaged course? But the whole purpose of that reapplication is to make it super easy for people like you to just for instructors like you to just continually get the designation until the point where maybe you decide to change, or maybe it's taught by a different instructor. So.
Okay, and then I know I've spoken with you as well, but so one of the sections one interesting fact I didn't know before is I teach a large lecture class, and I'm considering just turning one of my sections into a community engaged course. So it was nice to know that there was this section level.
Yep.
But one of the sections I'm considering is my honors section. And then I'm just wondering have you had any communication with honors at all about their experiential learning requirement? And so would like the CEC designation automatically count as an experiential, or like, I just wonder what conversation, so that when I enter conversation with them, I know what's been talked about already.
Yeah, Jen, that's a great question. And we are really pleased to report that we have had good conversations with the honors program, and the CEC courses will count towards their experiential learning. I think it's 12 hours maybe that students
It is, yeah.
have to take. And so Our plan is to also cross-promote, so we'll be promoting the CECs and opportunities for honor students, and the honors program will be promoting the Community Engaged courses as an opportunity for experiential learning for their students. So absolutely, it will, and that's a good reminder, Jen. I should have mentioned this during the presentation, that this designation is at the section level. So if you're teaching a really big class, oftentimes those really large classes, you're not going to do community engagement at the entire class level, but maybe at the section level, you're doing community engagement. And so you can definitely designate at the section level if that's where you're at.
Okay. Yeah, that clears up my questions. I had some questions about like community partners, just because we'll likely have more than one and we'll likely be rotating. But yeah, it seems like the reapplication process and just the, I've taken a quick look through the application, and it seems like there's plenty of wiggle room there to talk about how we're coordinating with them. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, these have all been fantastic questions. Does anybody have any other questions today?
Why aren't there more people on this call?
It's because we're holding this the Thursday of, or the Wednesday of finals week. So I understand that. And we're also, I also understand that this isn't early. This is very early to be thinking about next year's courses, right? So, you know, I certainly think about myself, and it's like, for fall semester, I was still trying to figure out my fall semester course in July, you know, so this is just an initial informational session, but I do think that your guys' questions have been really fantastic, and I think it's going to be really instructive for everybody that's going to be watching when we post this on our website afterwards. I would just say too that in the meantime, as you're going through your application process, please reach out if you have questions. If you're thinking, ooh, am I understanding what reciprocity means here, you know, or you know, does my syllabus reflect that I have reflection opportunity, activities within my course? Whatever questions you have, just reach out to us and we'd be happy to talk to you ahead of time. There's no secret here. This isn't a grant process. Our hope is that we will encourage more and more instructors to be teaching community engaged courses as a result of this. And so we're happy to help in any way. And the other thing I would just say is that our campus partners are also happy to help. So for those of you who have not worked with the Center for Teaching before, they're a fantastic resource, and they are partnering with us on this. And they're also happy to help if you have specific questions, for example, about syllabus design or how you create sort of course objectives that are going to align nicely with the project scope. Those are all things that we're happy to help with too, but the Center for Teaching is a fantastic partner on that, and they're happy to help. So. All right, everybody. Well, I really appreciate you attending this informational session. I really appreciate you guys, the commitment to community engaged teaching, and I look forward to receiving your applications. And as always, please feel free to reach out if you have any more questions. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy the warmth, but also I hope that you're safe with the winds and storms that may be coming later today. So best of luck with the end of the semester, everybody. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Take care.